In 2014, Chillicothe, Ohio was home to roughly 22,000 people. It is a quiet community, one that was not prepared for a sustained wave of disappearances. Over a 14-month span, 6 women connected to this town either vanished or were found dead. Their bodies were discovered near local rivers or in the derelict industrial buildings that edge the county line. The sequence began in early May with 27-year-old Charlotte Trago. After being dropped off at an apartment by her mother, she disappeared. Her family immediately insisted that Charlotte, a mother of 2, would never have walked away from her children without a word. 2 weeks later, 30-year-old Tamika Lynch went missing. When her body was discovered on a sandbar in Paint Creek, her family immediately raised a very specific concern. Tamika had a lifelong fear of water. To her mother, the idea that she would have willingly gone near the creek was unthinkable. Local police viewed these early cases differently. They noted that both women struggled with opioid addiction and concluded that these were separate tragedies, the result of living in high-risk environments. A divide immediately opened in Chillicothe. Law enforcement looked at the victims' circumstances and saw a series of unrelated accidents. The families looked at the victims' actual behavior, abandoning children or approaching water they feared, and saw evidence of targeted violence. The pattern continued through the end of the year. In November, 37-year-old Wanda Lemons vanished. A month later, 20-year-old Shasta Himmelrich disappeared on Christmas Day. Her body was pulled from the Scioto River a week later. The coroner detected non-lethal levels of oxycodone and cocaine in Himmelrich's system. Because the autopsy showed no signs of physical trauma, officials ruled her death a suicide. Her family rejected that conclusion. They argued that investigators were weighting the toxicology report while ignoring the behavior of a young woman who had shown no signs of wanting to end her life. The women caught in this cycle shared overlapping vulnerabilities. They were struggling with addiction, and several relied on sex work within the local underground economy to survive. These circumstances create a powerful smokescreen. Because sudden disappearances can be common in the world of drug dependency, they can mask the actions of a predator, making a deliberate campaign of violence look like routine chaos. The official explanation shifted in the spring of 2015. 2 more women, Tiffany Sayer and Timberly Clater, were found dead within weeks of each other. This timeline charts the 14-month period of the disappearances. In a town this size, 6 women vanishing or dying in similar circumstances is a statistical anomaly. The cluster is too dense to be a series of coincidences. The connections went deeper than the dates. These women often knew each other personally, moving through the same social circles and relying on the same networks for survival. The volume of cases eventually changed the investigation's trajectory. Local law enforcement acknowledged the scope exceeded their resources, leading to the formation of a joint task force and the arrival of the FBI. Authorities finally aligned with the family's fears. They were no longer investigating a string of accidents. They were hunting either an organized trafficking syndicate or a serial killer targeting a specific demographic. By the time the task force was operational, the delay in recognizing the pattern had already had an effect. The surviving women in this community were now acutely aware they were being targeted. Potential witnesses went silent. For people already living outside the law, talking to a federal police force is a risk. When you add the threat of a killer targeting anyone who speaks up, cooperation becomes almost impossible. Chillicothe remained on edge. Residents had to live with the knowledge that a pattern had been active for over a year before being acknowledged, a situation only intensified as national news crews arrived to document the town's crisis. But just as the local investigation hit a wall of silence, a violent encounter hundreds of miles away in a different state offered the first chance at an answer. The willingness to dismiss these tragedies as the lifestyle of the victims gave a predator a significant head start. That delay cost lives, and it set the stage for the confrontation that was about to follow. In July 2015, a woman named Heather Saul was attacked inside her home in Charleston, West Virginia. She fought back, retrieved a gun, and shot her attacker dead. Police quickly identified the man on her floor as Neil Falls. When investigators searched his vehicle outside, they found an assortment of weapons and restraints. Law enforcement described it as a kill kit assembled for premeditated violence. Detectives quickly noticed an eerie timeline coincidence. For over a year, women had been vanishing from Chillicothe, Ohio. That specific wave of disappearances stopped the exact same month Neil Falls was killed. At the very same time, a separate breakthrough happened back in Ohio. A grand jury indicted a man named Jason McCrary with murder in connection with the death of Timberly Claytor, the last of the 6 missing women. On paper, July 2015 looked like the close of a dark chapter, a suspected killer dead in West Virginia, and an indictment handed down in Ohio. But this neat 2-part resolution was a total illusion. Look at the geography. This map shows how close Charleston, West Virginia is to southern Ohio. Given the proximity and the timeline stopping abruptly at his death, investigators immediately began reviewing Neil Falls' movements to see if he was the phantom haunting Chillicothe. But the investigation hit a wall. Despite the highly suggestive timeline, police found 0 physical evidence linking Falls directly to any of the Chillicothe crime scenes or missing women. To this day, the connection remains purely circumstantial. Without concrete proof, Neil Falls is just a ghost in the narrative, rather than a definitive answer. Back in the streets of Chillicothe, the focus shifted entirely to the legal proceedings against Jason McCrary. McCrary was convicted in connection with the death of Timberly Claytor. His story ended quietly in 2022, when he died while incarcerated at Warren Correctional Institution after raising concerns about his safety. But McCrary's conviction came with a strict, frustrating boundary. He was tied to Timberly Claytor, and only Timberly Claytor. Law enforcement never publicly connected him to the rest of the missing women. No one has ever been charged for what happened to Tamika Lynch, Shasta Himmelrich, Tiffany Sayre, Wanda Lemons, or Charlotte Trago. This is where the investigation peaked. 1 dead suspect in West Virginia with no physical evidence, and 1 convicted murderer who accounted for a single victim. The macro pattern of the disappearances remained completely unaddressed. The failure to find a single perpetrator is compounded by the coroner's own paperwork. This layout visualizes the disparate rulings on the deaths, some marked as homicides, others as accidental overdoses, and 1 as a suicide. The families of the victims consistently objected to these findings. Tamika Lynch's body was found in a creek, but her family pointed to her documented severe fear of water, arguing she never would have gone near a riverbank willingly. Similarly, Shasta Himmelrich's death was officially ruled a suicide. Her family completely rejected that conclusion, noting she was preparing for a new baby and had shown absolutely no prior indication of suicidal intent. The official investigations created a fractured truth. The paperwork told one neat story, while the family's lived realities told another. This prolonged lack of answers seeped deep into the community's culture. It moved author Tiffany McDaniel, who grew up in the region, to write a novel exploring the addiction, violence, and trauma radiating from these unresolved cases. And the fear is still present today. Additional disappearances in and around Chillicothe, like the more recent case of Megan Lancaster, continually force investigators to look backward to see if old patterns are repeating. We have to look at the scale of this investigation. The initial disappearances troubled local authorities enough to bring in the FBI. Yet years later, the outcome is shockingly hollow. Here is the final tally. 6 women vanished, 1 conviction secured, 2 bodies never found at all. More than a decade later, Chillicothe still does not have the answers its families have been asking for since 2014. They are left with a terrifying pattern that never quite added up. Real-world mysteries don't guarantee satisfying endings. Sometimes they just stop. If you want to see which case I dig into next, hit subscribe. New investigations drop every week.